So I'm with Nityanand Mishra, and we are continuing our discussion on Ramayana as translated by Robert Goldman.
All right, so they say don't judge a book by its cover. But what if the cover has a spelling mistake in the title? What do you do?
I would go after my publisher.
So let's take a look. Let's take a look at the cover of the first book of Goldman's translation. The title, how it's written, Ramayanam Valmikiyam, there's a spelling mistake. There's an anuswar on ya, which is wrong. It should be a ma with a hal after ya. That is correct. The anuswar is wrong there. And Goldman must know this because he authored Devavani Praveshika, which has a lot of rules on Sanskrit grammar. What is the rule? So the rule is monuswara, which is the Paninian rule. A final M or the consonant ma is replaced by an anuswar when it is followed by a consonant. And the final M in a pada. So the Siddhanta Kaumudi says, Mantasya padasya anuswara syad dhali. Hali syat, natu anyatra. So look at this. So after ya there is ma and there is no consonant after it, and still they have made it an anuswar. So that's wrong.
It violates the rule.
It is wrong. It's a schoolboy error actually. So people who are learning, these are errors which students who start learning Sanskrit they make. This is not expected from Princeton University.
So Princeton University published this?
Yes, they Princeton Library of Asian Translations.
Wow.
Yeah. So they have a spelling mistake, a schoolboy error spelling mistake on their cover, in the title.
And they accuse us of lack of rigor, and then only that they have more, academic rigor, accuracy, all of that.
Well, we all need to scratch the surface. A lot of claims can be demolished by just scratching the surface. Now let's look at all the books. Every single book in the series had the same error on the cover.
So it is not a typo.
It is it's a bad spelling mistake. And if I were publishing, any publisher, be it any press, I make sure that I approve the cover. I make sure there are no spelling mistakes on the cover. I recently published with Bloomsbury, India, and they couldn't get the macron correctly on one of the letters. I said, no, you have to get it correctly. So it's probably not Goldman's mistake, but Goldman should have looked at it and said, no, that's a mistake, please correct it.
But it also shows a kind of a chalta hai attitude towards India. Okay, nobody will catch me, who cares, we're superior, okay, this is good enough. It's sort of good enough. I don't think that if they were translating and publishing a Greek classic or something in Latin or biblical, that they would dare to make this kind of mistake so many times.
Sure. And if you look at, we talked about Gita Press in our previous episodes. Look at Gita Press and look at Princeton University Press. Everywhere the Gita Press has ma with the hull sign at the end in multiple publications.
I like your headline, Princeton University Press can learn from Gita Press.
Of course, and Sheldon Pollock can learn from Gita Press.
Yeah.
Pollock, like a child, he says, which Indian scholar would be published by Western University today? I ask him, write a book in Sanskrit. Let's see if Gita Press or Chaukhamba publishes it.
Are willing to publish it?
If they do, I'll proofread it for Sheldon Pollock for free. But the book has to be in Sanskrit. It has to be sent to Gita Press or Chaukhamba, one of the Chaukhamba arms, or Rashtriya Sanskrit Samsthan. If they decide to publish it, I'll proofread it for Sheldon Pollock for free.
Good. So, Professor Pollock, here's an offer.
Yeah. Let's see if he takes it. All right. Now, let's look at... we looked at the Balkand in one of our previous episodes. We looked at the Shailush word in another episode. Now let's continue with some other samples from the Ramayana translations edited by Robert Goldman. Now this is from the Ayodhya Kanda, which was translated by Sheldon Pollock and also annotated by Sheldon Pollock. And here again I look at the same mistake that Goldman made on Kritajnya. The same mistake is repeated here. The verse, it's in the first sarga of the Ayodhya Kanda. The verse is 25. In the critical edition it's 20. The verse goes, Shastrajnyascha Kritajnyascha Purushantarako Vidaha Yaha Pragraha Anugrahayor Yatha Nyayam Vichakshanaha. Now again the word Kritajnya has come here, which the Gita Press correctly says Upakariyon ke prati Kritagya, Kritajnya. Now what's Sheldon Pollock's translation? He says Shastrajnya is learned in the sciences, which is correct. and Kritajnya is skilled in the practice of them. So he's invented a new meaning of Kritajnya. He's invented a dichotomy which doesn't exist in the original. So he says the distinction between theory and practice, which becomes so important in classical Indian culture, is drawn here for perhaps the first time. You see, when you're making a very bold claim, you can slip in one word which can help you escape later, which is perhaps.
Yeah, right.
You see,
He does that a lot.
Yeah, so you can say, I'm perhaps a reincarnation of Gautam Buddha.
Yeah.
Well, I said perhaps, So make any tall claim, just say perhaps. So look at that word, perhaps. It's very intelligently slipped in there for the first time. Now, I would like to ask Sheldon Pollock, where is the sense of them or practice present in the word Kritajnya? Just because a word comes next to a word, you cannot infer that Kritajnya is skilled in the practice of Shastras because it's used with Shastrajnya. No.
Right.
The word has an established meaning. That's what it means here. That's what multiple English, Hindi or Sanskrit translations say. Now you are inventing a new meaning which is grammatically incorrect because Kritajnya does not mean skilled in the practice of Shastra. There is no sense of Shastra in that word there at all. Again, practice. Krita is not practice. The word Krita does not mean practice. So, how are you inventing this new meaning? How do you justify it? Can you justify it in Sanskrit? Can you justify your interpretation in Sanskrit? No. Again, the other word I would like to say is Purushantara Kovidaha, which means, as Gita Press says, दूसरे पुरुषों के मनोभाव को जानने में कुशल थे. So, it describes the qualities of Rama. So, पुरुषों के तारतम्य को अथवा मनोभाव को जानने में कुशल. So, we meet people who are adept at inferring what the other person means or what the other person intends to do, or you can, get a sense of whether he says it or not, you can get a sense of what he intends. So that is Purushantara Kovidaha. Now Goldman says, an excellent judge of men. Again, you can judge men from their acts. But the original word says Purushantara Kovidaha. Judge their he was adept at knowing the internal intentions.
So he's reduced the meaning.
He's reduced the meaning.
He's cut out an important part.
Antar is not translated.
Cut out an important detail.
I can be a judge of men. Well, I can look at how people act and what they have said, and I can be a judge. But how do I judge what they?
This is a specific kind of judgment.
Sure, this is a very specific kind of judgment. So these are the commentaries on the words. Where Kritajnya is very clear, and in fact, Robert Goldman and also Sheldon Pollock, in all their translations, they rely heavily on commentary. So in one of the videos, Goldman says that he looked at 10 translations and 12 commentaries, or maybe it's 10 commentaries and 12 translations, and they quote these Sanskrit commentaries widely. Now, when all the Sanskrit commentaries gloss the word in the same way, Kritajnya, you depart from it, I would say you probably need to explain why you departed from it, which isn't done here.
So it's okay for all those who say freedom of speech, everybody can interpret. The point is that you're also misinforming people by doing that.
Yeah.
It's okay to depart, but then you should at least address why you departed and have a little bit of a burden of proof.
Right. Now let's see now how Pollock also glosses, or rather he in his note, he says the Tilak and the Ramayana Shiromani say could tell the inner feelings of men. What these Sanskrit commentaries say is he knew the abhipraya of men, of other men. Now abhipraya is different from feelings. The word abhipraya can either mean purpose or intention, or it can also mean an opinion or meaning or sense. A feeling could be love, hatred, jealousy, avarice.
It's a more precise civilization, a more precise intellectual tradition being digested into a less precise system. So, emotions are not the same thing as opinion.
Emotion is different from intention or opinion.
Right.
Abhipraya is different from feelings. So Pollock is writing, could tell the inner feelings of men. That's what these commentaries say. I would say this is a mistranslation of the word abhipraya, which is a very common word in Sanskrit and also in Hindi. Aapka abhipraya kya hai? We say aapka abhipraya kya hai?
Right.
You know, what do you mean? What is, or what is your intention?
Right.
What do you intend to say?
Right.
It's not, what is your feeling about me?
Right.
It's very different.
Right.
Abhiprayanti.
Right.
Yeah? And it's funny because, you know, these articles, they say Sheldon Pollock's Sanskrit is best across 2 hemispheres. I just say it's most hyped across 2 hemispheres.
Right.
Best? No, far from it. So let's move on. Now we'll see 2 examples where Pollock has missed out words in the original. So this is from the Sarga 83 in the traditional edition and Sarga 77 in the critical edition, where there's a description of Bharat going to meet Rama. Okay, so the verse goes, Tatah samuttitah kalyam asthaya syandanottamam prayayau bharatah shighram rama darshana kamyaya. So there's a word called samuttitah there. And kalyam, which means in the morning. Samuttita means somebody who has arisen from sleep, who has woken up, who has stood up. So the Gita Press says, Tarantar pratakal utkar. Now let's read Pollock's English translation. It's not there. Bharat made haste, and at that early hour he boarded his excellent chariot and set forth swiftly, eager to see Rama. Let's see Hari Prasad Shastri. He says, the prince rose.
Right.
Early in the morning, the prince rose. So Pollock has missed out a word.
He just ignored something.
He ignored that word. Why did he ignore that word? Because, well, I don't know why he ignored that word, but you ignore a word, you're losing information, and it's an error of omission. Now I find that this happens often in Goldman's and Pollock's translation. Now let's see what you could conclude if that word was there. So Bharat's army, Bharat woke up early morning and then boarded a chariot and he departed. So that shows you that the previous night he had slept and woke up early in the morning. Now somebody who was going through the emotional grief that Bharat was, how do you know he slept or not? Valmiki says that he rose in the morning.
Right. So the information is there.
His father has died. His brother, who he loves more than his life, has left for the forest. He's going to see him. People don't get sleep in such times. But here, well, people could sleep. They may not be able to sleep. Now here, Valmiki is telling you that he rose in the morning. He woke up in the morning. That means he did sleep in the night. You're losing that information.
Yes.
You know, leaving out a word, it's not very professional.
Well, you're cutting out the nuance.
Yeah.
Very important nuance. Yeah.
Now we go to the next verse. Again, 2 verses in a row, leaving out these words. Now this is the next verse. Agratah prayustasya sarve mantripurohitah adhiruhya hayaryuktan rathan surya rathopaman. Now here there's a word called adhiruhya, which is there in the Hindi translation. Rathon par baitkar yatra kar rahe the. Rathon par adhirudh hokar yatra kar rahe the. Adhiruhya. That word is missing from Pollock's translation. It's actually it's also missing from Hari Prasad Shastri's English translation. So why would you leave out words in the original? Why do you not translate them? Maybe it's careless work or not giving enough attention. I believe, you know, when I look at the Goldman series of Ramayana publications, I see a lot of energy has been spent on copious footnotes after footnotes, citing this, citing that, comparing this, comparing that.
To fool the people into thinking there's rigor.
But the rigor has to be there in the translation also. I'm not saying don't have rigor in the footnotes. Well, footnotes are very helpful, but you spend so much energy in footnotes, compare so many commentaries, but your translation is omitting words. Right in the first verse, Vagvidam Varam, Goldman omits Varam. Now here Pollock is omitting words after words. Then I have to say your translation is not rigorous. So does that serve the purpose? You have a translation which omits words and then you have copious footnotes. Well, I would say more people are likely to read the translation than go into the detailed footnotes.
Sure.
So one should, if I were doing translation footnotes, I would pay more attention to translation, which reaches a wider audience. I would say perhaps a little more effort on the footnotes is okay, because there are additional details, but the translation has to give these details. Now let's again look at the next Sarga, which is 84 in the traditional edition and 78 in the critical edition. Now here again, there's a misinterpretation by Pollock. So the verse goes, the first verse, now Nishad, the king of Nishadas, Guha, he has seen the army of Bharat on the opposite side of the river. So the Valmiki then describes, Tato nivishtam dhvajinim gangam anvashritam nadim nishadarajo drishtvaiva jnatin saparito bravit. The Gita Prasindhi translation reads, उधर निषादराज गुह ने गंगा नदी के तट पर ठहरी हुई भरत की सेना को देखकर सब और बैठे हुए अपने भाई बंधुओं से कहा. This is what I grew up learning, reading. Pollock's English translation says, now the king of Nishadas, seeing the bannered army encamped along the river Ganges, hurried off at once to speak with his kinsmen. Hurry off. What does hurry off mean? To leave in a hurry, to depart. It's an interesting phrasal verb. I checked several dictionaries of phrasal verbs. It's not, the entry is not there, so it's probably not as common, but I checked on the internet, and hurry off usually means to leave in a hurry, to depart. So Pollock says the king of Nishadas hurriedly left to speak with his kinsmen. The original Sanskrit doesn't have the sense of left. There's no word there. It just says, in fact, the reading is different in the critical edition, which says samtvarito bravit in the critical edition, which translates as spoke hurriedly, spoke in a hurry, and not
left
hurried off to speak. This is an error. This is an error of commission. He has misinterpreted.
That's a serious change of meaning.
Yeah, because in one sense, you would conclude that the Nishad left that place in a hurry in order to meet his kinsmen and speak with them. Whereas the verse, the sense of the verse is, he hurriedly spoke. At once he spoke with his kinsmen, so they were there with him.
And there's nothing about leaving.
Yeah, there's nothing about leaving. So, I would say this is a mistranslation.
Yes, yes.
Now let's look at the next verse. Mahati amitah sena sagarabha pradrishyate nasyantam avagacchami manasapi vichintayan. Now here, the Nishad tells his kinsmen, the king of Nishadas tells his kinsmen, भाइयों इस ओर जो ये विशाल सेना ठहरी हुई है समुद्र के समान अपार दिखाई देती है, मैं मन से बहुत सोचने पर भी इसका पार नहीं पाता हूँ. Hari Prasad Shastri's English translation reads, my friends, this great army which is occupying the river banks is not to be numbered even in imagination. He misses a few aspects, but he gets the sense right. Now what does Pollock say? Pollock says, a great army has appeared here, as vast as the sea. I cannot imagine what its purpose might be, however much thought I give it. Very different. So there are two issues here. One is there's a mistranslation of pradrishyate. Pradrishyate is in the present tense, which Gita Press gets it right. Dikhai de rahi hai. It is seen to me now. I can see it now. Now Pollock says has appeared, has come from somewhere. It is present perfect. So present tense verb is translated as present perfect. And then the word manasa is completely omitted in Pollock's translation. There's a word manasa, with my mind. Do you see that in Pollock's translation? No. However much thought I give it, where is the mind there? There's not there. Now manasapi vichintayan. Vichintayan, thinking is there, but the mind is not there in Pollock's translation. Now, there's another mistake. There's a mistranslation of antam. Ant is not purpose. The word ant does not mean purpose. What the verse means, what the king of Nishadas says, that there's a great army seen across the banks, as vast as the sea. It looks like the sea. Even when I think with my mind, I cannot fathom the extent or end of it. Not only can I not see its end, I cannot even think about its end. It is so vast. Now what Pollock says, I cannot imagine what its purpose might be.
That's a whole completely wrong meaning.
Very different, very wrong, very incorrect. And how somebody could interpret ant as purpose is beyond me. You know, these are the meanings of ant from Monier Williams. There's not a single one which says purpose. So can Pollock justify in Sanskrit how he interpreted ant as purpose? I'd like to know. Let's move on. We move on to a very interesting verse. We move on to the Sundarkand, which is translated by the Goldmans, Robert Goldman and Sally Sutherland Goldman. And a beautiful poetic verse from a beautiful poetic canto, which is the 5th canto in the traditional edition, the 4th canto, the 4th sarga in the critical edition, and the 4th verse there. Interestingly, Robert Goldman has sung this verse.
On a YouTube.
There's a YouTube video in which Goldman sings some verses from the Sundarakanda, and this is one of the verses he has sung. And when I listened to it, I realized that Robert Goldman mispronounces th as th and bh as b, so he cannot pronounce the
That's pretty serious stuff.
aspirated consonants. So I'll tell you how he sings. So how he sings is Hamso yatara jat panjarastaha Simho yata mandara kandarastaha Viro yatagar vitakunjarastas Chandropi babbraja tathambarastaha. So the word is babbraja. Goldman says babbraja.
Bh becomes b.
And th becomes th.
Th becomes th.
Well, I'm not passing a judgment on him, but I'm stating the facts because you see, I have grown up listening to Hindi, speaking Hindi. My ears can make out those sounds, and my ears say this is the incorrect sound.
Yeah.
So, well, look, I tried to learn Tamil. I didn't go far, but Tamil has sounds which Hindi doesn't have. So these are new sounds to me. So the Tamil word for a banana is Varaiparam. I don't know if I can pronounce it correctly, but that's a new sound. But if I spend 40 years of my life learning Tamil, translating Tamil works, I think I could possibly work hard towards my pronunciation.
If a person is deficient, it's okay as long as the readers understand that. But when the readers deify the Goldmans and Pollocks and these people, then you assume that they're flawless.
Now, how I would sing this verse is, and people can compare my singing with Goldman's singing. His videos on the YouTube, so is on YouTube. So how I'd sing is it's Upjati meter, very 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 musical. Hamso yathara jat panjarastha Simho yatha mandar kandarastha Viro yathagar vitakunjarastha Chandropi babhraja tathambarastha. So that's how I sing it. My th,
a whole different effect.
My th and my bh is clear. Goldman's th is th, Goldman's bh is b. Just stating facts.
Yes.
Now, okay, so here I want to highlight this verse because I would like to say how a translator can sometimes help the reader. So Goldman's translation is not wrong here. What Goldman says is, for Garvit Kunjarastha, he says, mounted on a haughty elephant. Now look at Gita Press Hindi translation. Madmat hathi ki peeth par. Now somebody can be Garvit or haughty due to his by haughty because he thinks he has a lot of money. So that is a dhana garvita. Somebody can be haughty because he thinks he is very powerful. That is bala garvita. An elephant, when does it become haughty or arrogant or aggressive? When it is in the state of mast. So that is madamatta. So just a small change, but it made so much clear to the reader that okay, the hathi is in the mad. And in fact, there is an elephant has been described as Madagarvitam in the Mahabharata. There's this verse in the Boria critical edition which says, Tam drishtva kunjaram mattam ayantam Madagarvitam. The kunjar is Garvit because of Mad. So again, Gita Press does a better job than Goldman. Now let's look at this. A serious error. Again, next verse. It says, Sita kakudma nivatikshna shringo mahachala shveta ivordhu shringa hastiva jambu nadabadha shringo vibhati chandra paripurna shringa. The verse starts with sthitaha. The Gita Press translation says khada ho, jaise tikhe singh wala bail khada ho. Goldman's translation says rising like a sharp horned bull. Sthitaha means stationed.
Right.
It is the opposite of moving or rising or going anywhere. That's why a sthan is a place. In Marathi, they call a station as sthanaka. All from the same root, tishthati. The root is shtha gati nivritta. When your motion stops, then you use the word stha, from which comes the word sthitaha.
Sthan is a common word. I mean,
yes, sthan is a place, sthanak is a station.
Pakistan and Kazakhstan and this stan and that stan. And it's gone into the Persian and Urdu also.
Sthit means stationed.
Right.
Sthit means stationary. Sthit means not moving. And Goldman says rising.
Completely the opposite.
It's completely opposite. So, is it not an error? It's an error. It's an error of commission. I have to say it's a wrong translation.
Serious error.
It's a serious error. So, or perhaps he's talking about the moon which is rising. In that case, he has not translated the word sthita, so he has omitted. So either an error of commission or an omission, misleading anyway. And again, once again, again and again, I see Gita Press does not make those errors, right? So now we move on to this important verse, which was cited as evidence for the misogynist pig translation by Audrey Truschke. So this is in the Yuddha Kanda. The Sarg is 116 in the traditional edition, 104 in the critical edition. A very important verse, which goes when Sita is speaking to Rama just before she talks about the Agni Pariksha. She says, Prithak strinam pracharena jatim tvam parishankase parityajainam shankam tu yaditeham parikshita. So I read the Gita Press translation, both Hindi and English. नीच श्रेणी की स्त्रियों का आचरण देखकर यदि आप समूची स्त्री जाति पर ही संदेह करते हैं तो यह उचित नहीं है. यदि आपने मुझे अच्छी तरह परख लिया हो तो अपने इस संदेह को मन से निकाल दीजिए. And the Gita Press English translation. The Gita Press English translation is very useful because whatever extra they say, they put in parentheses. So any ellipsis they supply, they make it clear to the reader that it is for additional interpretation. It's not in the original.
Right.
So judging by the conduct of vulgar women, you seem to distrust the entire womankind, which is not reasonable. Pray, shake off this doubt if I have been actually tested and found trustworthy by you. Now Goldman's translation says, Goldman and Van Newton, they say, you harbor suspicion against all women because of the conduct of the vulgar ones. If you really knew me, you would abandon your suspicion. The words here are parishankase and shankam. Both of these come from the root shank, which in the dhatu part is said shaki shankayam. The root shaki or shank is used in the sense of shanka. What is the meaning of shanka? Three primary meanings. One is trasa, which is fear or anxiety. So there's a word called nishank. Nishank is fearless.
Right.
So shanka means fear. Shanka can also mean vitarka, conjecture. It's a guess. Ityashanke, iti shanke, I guess this is so. Shanka can also mean a doubt or a samshaya.
Right.
So
in Hindi it's a common word.
It's a common word, samshaya. So we say shanka samadhan. A shanka is resolved. There's a samadhan of shanka. The common feeling across all these meanings is of not being sure. When you're afraid, you're not sure what will happen. When you conjecture, you're not sure whether it's true. When you doubt, you don't know if it's true or not. Neutral. A doubt is neutral. A suspicion is a negative word. You have a suspicion against somebody. So one of the meanings of suspicion is to suspect somebody of wrongdoing. You have a suspect of a crime. You can have self-doubts. You cannot have self-suspicion. I can have doubts on myself. I can have doubts on my abilities. I won't have suspicion against my doubts. So if I say I doubt somebody, it's different from saying I suspect he is bad. I'm not convinced. So the word is that Sita has said, Sandeh is the word that Gita Press Hindi uses. Doubt and distrust, a lack of trust, is what the Gita Press English uses. And Goldman says suspicion, and then he puts the word against, which the likes of Truschke, who have no Sanskrit knowledge of their own, who just claim to be scholars and I don't know what, but which the likes of Truschke can then go on to interpret in certain other ways. So we have a case where the word shanka, the neutral word shanka, is translated as suspicion, which is a negative word, right? Now the next one is also important because this was also cited by Audrey Truschke. Now this is the verse 14 in the same sarga. Tvaya tu nripa shardula roshameva laghuneva manushena stritvam puraskritam. Now this is a grammatical construct which Goldman and others, they either they didn't get it here, or they translate it in a way which can be interpreted as a wrong meaning. So what Sita says is, in the Hindi translation I read from Gita Press, हे नृपश्रेष्ठ, आपने ओछे मनुष्य की भांति केवल रोष का अनुसरण करके मेरे शील स्वभाव का विचार छोड़कर केवल निम्न कोटि की स्त्रियों के स्वभाव को ही अपने सामने रखा है. In English, the Gita Press says, by you, however, who like a small man gave yourself up to anger alone, O jewel among the rulers of men, womanliness alone has been mainly taken into consideration. So both translation we see that Sita says that you have followed only anger. You who have followed only anger have considered only womanliness. Now what Goldman and others say is, but now tiger among men, and tiger again is, as I mentioned about Pungava, again Shardula here, you have given way to anger like some lesser man, taking into account only that I'm a woman. Now here, if you see, you can interpret it as you took into account that I'm a woman and therefore gave way to anger.
Right.
That's what I get the sense.
That is how he's positioned it for that.
That's the sense I get. You have given way to anger, taking into account only that I'm a woman. So that means the cause is you think I'm a woman, and the effect is you have given way to anger.
Yes.
Whereas this interpretation you can draw from this wording, therefore it can be misleading. It is probably misleading. One may conclude that anger is a result of considering womanhood, and you can interpret misogyny here.
All kind of things you can come up with.
But the grammatical construction of the verse implies that the following anger is a precedent. Following anger is independent of considering womanhood, and so considering only womanhood is a result of following anger.
So he's reversed the cause and effect, right?
His translation can be interpreted as reversing cause and effect.
Right.
Now the sutra here in the Sanskrit grammar is latah shatrishanachava prathama samanadhikarane. So the construct rosham anuvartata stritvam puraskritam is the same as the classical example in the Kashika, pachata kritam. It was done by who was cooking. So you can have an object in pachata, you can have an object, you can have another word in kritam, odanam pachata papam kritam. So pachata kritam means it was done by somebody who was cooking, not the one who was doing it cooked it. There's a difference. So it is not said tvaya tu narashardula stritmaveva puraskurvata laghuneva manushena rosha evanuvartitah. That is not the wording. The wording is rosham evanuvartata stritmaveva puraskritam, not stritmaveva puraskurvata rosha evanuvartitah. So this interpretation is not backed by grammar. That there was the cause for anger is the consideration that she is a woman. No, it's the other way around. Considering that she is only a woman is a result of, as Sita says, following only anger. So with this, we conclude our set of examples drawn from Goldman's translations, drawn from the series, Pollock's translations, and in all these examples we discussed, the thing I find is that the Gita Press, which I grew up reading, the Hindi translation which I grew up reading, and the English translation which I read later, parts of it, they are consistently better, more reliable, more true to the original. So my conclusion is, look, if you want to read the Ramayana, if you want to read the English translation, read the Gita Press translation, keep Goldman as a reference, do not blindly trust on it. It's useful, the footnotes are useful if you want to see where this word has come at some places, but I would not blindly trust Goldman's translation. I have found Gita Press translations to be much more reliable, and if you're using at a primary source, use the Gita Press source, read the other books if you want to, but in my experience, I find Gita Press more reliable, more trustworthy, more true to the original.
And I hope people from the Ministry of External Affairs, especially ICCR, watch this, because they blindly invite people, lectures here and there, give them awards and all kinds of things because they're famous. I hope the Culture Ministry understands all these things, because I haven't found that they really don't. The HRD, and various institutions in India constantly pandering to Western Indologists because they have fame, and because we have an inferiority complex, and we think that if they say a few good things about us, it will legitimize us. I think we need to go deeper. We need to get some good scholars to critique them. And what concerns me is that because of fame, power, prestige, there is implied legitimacy. It becomes blind our people become blind, and then there's a huge bandwagon of inviting them to this literary festival and that literary festival, making big celebrities and deities out of them. I mean, I'm not knocking them down. I'm not saying they're bad people. I think they've done some good work also, but it ought to be taken with a grain of salt, and we need better informed scholars to critique them. Yeah. Now, as far as the message for our own people is concerned, we have a BV Parishad. We have many organizations, many formal and informal groupings. They ought to be getting involved in all this. I mean, I've been trying this, getting experts activated, and I'm glad I've gotten a few experts like Nityanand activated, but we need a lot of our experts to get out of their shells and start doing this kind of work. Only then we can realize the vision of Swadeshi ideology. And thank you for your contribution.
Thank you. Namaste.
Thank you for watching. You can subscribe here and also hit the bell icon to make sure you get notified. To donate, please click this button.